Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees, dear friends. As always, I just want to uh, just thank everyone, especially Ananda Bihari Prabhu and everyone, for the opportunity to serve all of you by giving class today. And dear devotees, I humbly ask for your blessings that I may speak in this class in a way that glorifies God and inspires myself and others to serve Guru and Radha and Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Okay, my friends. So I'm going to share the screen so we can look at the verses. Today we're going to be reading from Canto 10, chapter 51, and it's going to be verses 48 and 49. Okay. So check verse 48. Kalavaresmin kata kujasani be nirudamano nara deva ityaham. Oh, that's not the rhythm at all, but let's try that again. Kalavaresmin kata kujasani be nirudamano nara deva ityaham. Riturate bashwa padatya anikapaya. Gamparyatam stva ganayam sudurmadaha. I should have had Paul read these verses. Sorry about that, everyone. With deep arrogance, I took myself to be the body, which is a material object like a pot or a wall. Thinking myself a god among men, I traveled the earth surrounded by my charioteers, elephants, cavalry, foot soldiers, and general, disregarding you in my deluding pride. So again, this is King Mushakunda is speaking to Krishna. So when he's saying this regarding you, he's talking about Krishna. Text 49. Pramatamu chariti kriya chinti chintaya pravidya lobam vishayeshu lala sam tvam apratama pra tvam apratmataha sahasabi padyase Shulelil hanohir ivakum antakaha. Okay. A man obsessed with the thoughts of what he thinks needs to be done, intensely greedy and delighting in sense enjoyment, is suddenly confronted by you, who are ever alert. Like a hungry snake licking its fangs before a mouse, you appear before him as death. Purport. We may note here the contrast between the words pramatam and apramataha. Those who are trying to exploit the material world are pramata, deluded, bewildered, maddened by desire. But the Lord is apramata, alert, sober, and unbewildered. In our madness, we may deny God or his laws, but the Lord is sober and will not fail to reward or punish us according to the qualities of our activities. Okay. Stop sharing. Oops. Om Gyanatimrandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Shakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto them. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prasharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashuta Desatarine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna on this earth, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. Our respectful obeisances are unto you, O spiritual master, servant of Saraswati Goswami. You are kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya Deva and delivering the Western countries which are filled with impersonalism and voidism. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. I offer my respectful obeisances to Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas and all the others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh Krishna, oh Radha, please engage me in your service. Please, 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 please. Many, many times. Okay, my dear friends. So today, have a bit of heavy topics that I want to discuss in class. And the main points that I want to discuss are meeting death with fear and meeting death with love. And we actually already, Bhima Prabhu did not know that I was going to be speaking on these topics today, but he already kind of gave us a preview yesterday during the Afterglow. He was talking about Krishna and his form as death. So I thought that was really interesting that Krishna was already kind of giving us a preview of what I was going to speak about today. And why was I inspired to speak about this? Well, in verse 49 itself, it says, a man obsessed with thoughts of what he thinks he needs to be done, intensely greeting and delighting in sense enjoyment, is suddenly confronted by you, right? You, Krishna, who are ever alert. Like a hungry snake licking its fangs before a mouse, you, or Krishna, right, appears before him as death. So in this verse, we very clearly have Krishna being seen as his aspect as death, right? So as a fearsome snake before a mouse. And he's described this way because that's how we can see Krishna or death with fear if we're obsessed with sense enjoyment, right? If we're afraid to let go of our material body and our material obsessions, that's how we're going to see Krishna at the time of the death of the body. And what do we have? You know, this is not just in this verse. What do we have in Shastra to back this up? So in Bhagavad Gita, both in 9.19 and in Bhagavad Gita 10.34, and I'm going to read both parts of those verses that describes this. It says, "O Arjuna, I am immortality. I am also death personified," right? So that's Krishna speaking to Arjuna. And then in 1034, Krishna says, "I am all devouring death." So Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, he is death personified. He is all devouring death in two separate verses. And I share this just to further solidify the idea of Krishna and death and the importance of how we greet our death, the death of our bodies, and the death of others' bodies, since that is a reflection of our relationship with Krishna, right? Our relationship with God. And then in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.14.33, Srila Prabhupada says, in this material world, when the conditioned soul forgets his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and does not care for Krishna consciousness, he simply engages in different types of mischievous and sinful activities. He is then subjected to the threefold miseries, and out of fear of the elephant of death, he falls into the darkness found in a mountain cave. So I share this because both in the verse and in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains how the conditioned soul, when they're a materialistic person, they forget their relationship with God. And then that's where that fear and the miseries lie. And they may try to forget about Krishna, but they're still going to face him at the time of death. And then I wanted to share this beautiful kind of anecdote from Srila Prabhupada. He was giving a Nectar of Devotion class back in October of 1972 in Vrindavan. And he beautifully explains how someone who is choosing to ignore God or even just is inimical to God will still experience him at the moment of death. So his disciple Sharadilya asked, Srila Prabhupada, I may have missed a point about the atheist. He sees God at the time of death. So does he see the form of Krishna at the time of death? And Prabhupada said, no. As the form of death, Krishna has many forms. So the death is also Krishna's form. Ye yata mam prapayante tams tataiva bhajamayham. And that's Bhagavad Gita 4:11. One who has become inimical to Krishna, Krishna appears as an enemy. So an ordinary man, they fear the death. And that fearful death, meeting with the fearfulness, is their meeting with Krishna. So obviously I paraphrased a lot of this because it's a pretty long anecdote, but it's really great. Because I share this because it further clarifies, right, that idea that those who fear Krishna or God, or those who choose to ignore God or Krishna during their lives, they still face him at the end. And they will have some really fearful experiences at the time of death. And I wanted to exemplify this. I found some actually from a medical journal, a scientific medical journal. And this journal article was on distressing near-death experiences. And I just wanted to share just a couple, just to give you an idea that it's not just Shastra, like regular kind of medical journals have this as well. So it shared that an atheistic university professor had an intestinal rupture, and they experienced in their near-death experience being pinched and torn apart by malevolent beings. And then there was a woman who had attempted suicide, and she felt her body sliding downward into a cold, dark, watery environment. And she said, when I reached the bottom, it resembled the entrance to a cave, which looked like webs hanging, and she heard cries and wails and moans. And then she saw these grotesque beings that were really frightening, and it looked like they were being tormented or in agony. So I just wanted to share just a few examples because unfortunately there are a lot of examples of people experiencing death at the time of death due to the reactions from their previous actions in life. However, I want to spend more time and finish this class with some hopeful examples of devotees meeting Krishna in his form of death with love, with loving acceptance. Because as much as it's helpful to know not what to do, which is what this kind of beginning part is, I really think that it's, at least for me personally as a aspiring devotee, like it's really a lot more helpful for me to kind of go in with the hope, like what can I do? How can I see examples of what can be done? And just that gives me hope. That's the light at the end of the tunnel. So in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.16, in terms of meeting death with love, meeting Krishna with love, Srila Prabhupada explains, the highest perfection of human life achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of God at the end of life, right? So it doesn't get any clearer than that our goal as devotees of God is to work towards that final exam, as they say, right? That moment when we leave our bodies, we want to be able to remember our dear Lord Krishna at the time when these bodies die. And I'm going to share a verse and a purport from Srila Prabhupada that just, in my opinion, just perfectly clarifies this. So it's a little long, but it's worth listening to because he does this so beautifully. And that's Bhagavad Gita 8.6, both the verse and the purport. So it says, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. And then in the purport, Prabhupada says, the process of changing one's nature at the critical moment of death is here explained. A person who at the end of his life quits his body thinking of Krishna attains the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. But it is not true that a person who thinks of something other than Krishna attains the same proper state of mind. And then he gives an example how Maharaj Bharat, although a great personality, he thought of a deer at the end of his life. So in his next life, he was transferred into the body of a deer. And then he goes on to say, of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the end of death. So this life creates one's next life. And if in one's present life, one lives in the mode of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. That will help one be transferred to the transcendental nature of Krishna. And if one is transcendentally absorbed in Krishna's service, then in his next body, he will be transcendental, spiritual, not material. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life. So again, I felt like it was necessary to read this whole thing because Srila Prabhupada made it so incredibly clear how important it is for us to build our relationship to Krishna in our lives with love so that we can have that moment at the time of the death of this body where we can accept that and we can be absorbed in his service and be able to let go of this material body and accept our spiritual bodies to be able to serve Krishna even more. Because this is true not just as something that's a benefit to us, it's a benefit to us to not get another material body at our next birth, but it's also because that's what's going to make Krishna happiest, right? And that's ultimately what we want. What will make Krishna happy? Krishna doesn't want us to continue to suffer in material body to material body to material body. You know, he wants us to join him in the spiritual world. So we're not just doing this just for ourselves, but for Krishna as well. And if there was a book for this class that I literally wanted to just take the whole book and be like, here, it's the book Life's Final Exam, Death and Dying from the Vedic Perspective by Giriraj Swami. And I could put the link to it in the chat during our, loving exchanges time. This was a book that I was just, it was so hard not to just try to read full pages from it. But I'm just going to give some little examples from it because this book is really inspiring. Because if you read this book, at least for me, it's really helped me kind of think of death of this body and dying, not just of myself or others, but in a really hopeful way. And how we can kind of shift the way of thinking of it for ourselves and for our loved ones so that we can feel more inspired and more hopeful. So some examples from that are, for example, there was a devotee called Nirguna Das, and he was at the last moments of death, right? He was in, like, I think it was like a week or two before he left his body, and everything usually gets shut down, but the doctor was bewildered that this devotee was at the edge of death. And when kirtan started playing in his death room, where everybody was getting prepared, he opened his eyes, he raised his arms, and with a transcendental smile, he started singing along to the kirtan in his room. Like, I don't know about you, but that gives me like goosebumps, right? And then there was another story of Keshava Bharati Das Goswami, and he was accompanying his mom, who was a devout Christian, and during her last moments. And while he was accompanying her, he was reading from Krishna book in her last days. And because of that, it's a whole chapter, but it's really worth reading. This is just little bits of it. She became a devotee and she ended up getting initiation on her deathbed, and she was chanting Hare Krishna in her agony. And she was repeating, Krishna, Krishna is God, over and over again. And at the end, she was just crying out Krishna's name. And then the beautiful thing about this was that the hospice people, who were there to kind of help with her and, the devotee kind of helping her, they said that they couldn't believe how strong the spiritual atmosphere was in her room. And then there's also a story of Giriraj Swami, who also the actual author of the book. And he shared how his father, when his father left his body, his family was singing aloud in Hebrew. And they were singing, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And amidst that, his father opened his eyes wide, smiled, and left his body. So I wanted to share that one as well, just to kind of show that it's not just, devotees in the Hare Krishna or Gaudiya Vaishnavism that can experience this. Like anybody who has that devotion to God and is able to remember God at the end can have that loving acceptance, that loving, okay, I'm letting this body go so that I can be with God. But some other examples, and again, were so many that I wanted to share, but I don't have the time. And so I really am looking forward to, in our loving exchanges, to hear if any of you have any examples to share about this. But in Jamuna Devi Dasi's book, A Life of Unalloyed Devotion, it's shared, and I quote, at about 6:30 in the morning on December 20th, Jamuna Devi's constant companion and spiritual confidant, Dina Tarani Dasi, found that Jamuna had left. Her hand was in her bead bag, and a slight smile was on her face. She looked completely at peace, even blissful. She had been unafraid of death. She had been confident that she would again be with Prabhupada or somehow engaged in serving his mission. So this was an example that I wanted to share because I felt like this is another devotee who really exemplified engaging herself in serving Guru, and Radha and Krishna throughout her life. And this example really makes it clear how she was unafraid of death, of the death of her body, and leaving everything material behind due to all this prior preparation that she had done. And that beautiful idea that she had that she was just moving on in her service, right? She was just moving on in her service. And then another example in another book that I highly recommend, and again, trying to find a small part to share was difficult, is Black Lotus, The Spiritual Journey of an Urban Mystic. And this is a book about Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. And I recommend, especially on this topic, reading chapter 9, The Long Journey Home. This whole chapter is all about Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj and how he kind of prepares himself and others for his body's death and for their own mortality. So this small bit that I wanted to share, it doesn't do justice to the whole chapter, but just it's what I could kind of grab. Said, Guru Dev lies on his bed surrounded by his caregivers. Radhanath Swami holds Guru Dev's hand as his hand holds a Govardhan Shila, a sacred stone, not different from Krishna himself. Ekavira is on his left, massaging his left hand, and Dhruva is massaging his feet. Other caregivers take turns holding another Govardhan Shila on his head, and Agni Prabhu fans him with a peacock fan at his right. A molding of Srila Prabhupada rests by his left arm, and he is adorned with Chandan, a large Tulsi garland from the Panchatattva deities, and a beautiful flower garden for Radha Damodar. The day is clear and the room is quiet. The time is soon. The sweet chanting of Hare Krishna in the classic tune pervades the house. It is serene and stately, and Srila Prabhupada looks upon Gurudev from the altar that faces him above his feet. Beautiful images of Krishna with the cowherd boys and gopis, the transcendental maidens of Vrindavan surround Gurudev. He is peaceful and transfixed. So I wanted to share this because I thought it was so inspiring and heartwarming to hear about this beautiful soul, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, and how he prepared everyone for that moment, and hearing how everybody just came together to make the experience of him leaving his body one full of love, right? Love from the devotees in caring for one another, love for the Lord, seeing death of the body as an opportunity to meet the Lord with love and acceptance. And of course, there's so many other devotee stories that when I was researching for this class, I found that I just really don't have the time to do. So like I kind of share. So that's why I said, like, I really want to hear your stories and your inspiring stories of people who have left their bodies kind of thinking of God, in that loving acceptance. But a couple that I wanted to highlight were Krishna Nandini Devi Dasi. She's a Vaishnavi disciple of Srila Prabhupada who battled with cancer, and she left her body back in 2020. And a lot of us knew of her. And she, through her selfless service during the time of leaving her body, just really inspired a lot of people to kind of see that she was just like, I'm just continuing in my service to Guru, and I'm just getting ready to leave this body for the next service. She was so inspiring. And then, of course, we have Kadamba Swami Maharaj, who many of us talked about last year when he left his body last year, and how moved we were in listening to that loving message, that last message that he left before he was going to leave his body, that inspired so many of us. So he also really exemplified that letting go of the body, meeting Krishna in his aspect of death with loving acceptance and just being ready, as he said, let's just go to the spiritual world. Let's go serve Krishna there. So the last thing I want to do, I do want to leave enough time for loving exchanges, is that I just want to finish with this poem, or this writing that was written by Karnamrita Das Prabhu. And he left his body in February 9th of 2021. He was another Srila Prabhupada disciple, and he was a member of the Grihastha Vision team. He was a premarital counselor, and he just was really inspiring in how he took on his service to Guru and to Radha and Krishna. So it's a really, I really found this poem powerful. It's a bit long, so I just ask you to please open your ears, but most importantly, please open your hearts to listen to the wisdom in this poem. So I'm just going to take a quick sip. Okay. So it says, I saw the Grim Reaper in my dream. Feeling no fear, I was curious to see him. Coming near, he pointed his bony, pale hand toward me. His other palm raised in blessing pose, where it was written the number 65, my age. Then, with both hands, he pointed to the sky and shrugged. His sickle and dark robes then transformed. He showed his true self as a blissful, radiant sage. Smiling enchantingly, he said, people dress me with their fear, thinking I have come to destroy them and take everything away. You can see me as I am because you have no fear. You live the life of godly devotion, the life of the soul. Excuse me. Death only pertains to the body, having nothing to do with the soul. I only come to help souls have another opportunity in physical form. Life is a great blessing to realize the soul and God, but souls cover themselves and hide behind matter's disguise. People fear me because of their false attachments to temporary things that are actually the cause of all their suffering. Such a great irony. They fail to know the purpose of life and death, and that physical life is short for a very good reason. Not knowing this, these people complain about superficial things instead of searching for answers. Why is life temporary? What life is for? Why there is birth, death, disease, old age, joy, and sorrow, and a feeling of incompleteness. Souls in physical dress cling to false things that have nothing to do with themselves as a soul, thinking they are the body, that material things belong to them, that bodily relationships and designations define them, that kinsmen only come from blood ties. But actually, every being is our kinsman, as we are all children of the same God, our source. To study this is life's curriculum. To realize it is true knowledge. One can't wait till the time of death to contemplate this, but must study it in life, endeavoring to live the life of the soul. The great prophets throughout time come to teach this. Following their example, you must share this wisdom about the proper use of this temporary physical life. Real life is eternal in the great joyful celebration of God. We find meaning and purpose in the spirit, and everything we search for is within already. You should remember that you may die today or tomorrow or before you turn 66 or in 20 years. It matters not if you live the life of the soul. For one truly devoted to God, life and death are the same, to the extent you live the sole purpose of life and remember God. This truth has to be chosen moment by moment until you are completely purified of matter's influence. You must teach by who you are, your highest ideals. Let your soul's light illuminate and guide you at every step and help receptive souls awaken to their divine potential, or that which they search for without knowing. Thus, you have to demonstrate that they are searching for. You have to demonstrate what they are searching for by radiating the joy, peace, and wisdom of the soul, and speak from your soul heart to them. That is your life's work now and forever. Then I woke up, praying to Krishna to completely wake up. Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees. They are full of compassion for the fallen, conditioned souls. So, my dear friends, I just want to finish with that because it always makes me want to cry. So, please, what are your takeaways or questions or comments, corrections? Do you have any inspiring stories of others in your lives who have been able to leave their bodies just with that love of God? So, thank you.
Damodar, Priya, wonderful class. So much emotion, spiritual emotion, and thank you for inviting us in the realm of your Krishna consciousness. It's always very deep and real. Thank you. My personal takeaway is that real life is eternal. What a wonderful statement. We're not going anywhere, dear devotees. We're going to be all right. Jamuna Jaya has her hand up.
I am. I'm almost embarrassed to speak because what can be said after a class like that? But I just wanted to come on just to encourage you and say how moving it is. And my big takeaway is like Jamuna Devi said, it's just a continuation of service, and it hit very personally because of some things going on in my own life right now. And it was just the thing that I know I personally needed today. And so it's just so beautiful. I don't even know what to say because you had so many wonderful things to say, but I just wanted to encourage you and thank you so much for like, if you're not the picture of a sincere devotee, I don't know who the heck is. I just want to say that you are the embodiment of sincerity. So thank you for sharing your gifts with us. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, dear sister Jamunata. I know that there's a lot of us that are kind of experiencing either like that relationship to leaving the bodies and to Krishna, and how we can support not just ourselves but others in that. So I felt like Krishna really wanted this share today. So thank you so much for hearing that. Does anybody else have anything? Oh, I see my dear sister Stephanie Heinhold is here. Hi Krishna, thank you for support. Does anybody else have anything?
Yeah, we have some things in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Jeffrey,
Oh, yes.
Jeffrey Prabhu, would you like to unmute yourself?
Well,
If you
I was thinking, thank you, Damodar Priya, for the class. Such beautiful things that you had to say, and with such sincerity. It's humbling. But I did have a question about this absorption, and if we have the mood in that absorption of, if I do this, then Krishna will be pleased, or if I do this, then whatever the outcome is, then we mistakenly take the role of Ishvara in our attempt to become absorbed in Krishna. We assume the role of cause to a certain extent. And then you answered my question later when you read that beautiful poem. And he said, this truth must be chosen moment by moment. And so it's interesting, the kind of line we walk in this attempt to become self-realized, that even in misunderstanding the process, we can misstep. That we really do have to make that choice to choose the truth moment by moment, and not think that that choice of the truth or the realization of the self is a cause in and of itself. That's my thought, but it's up for destruction. Anybody
I don't think you have to destroy it. I thank you so much. I'm glad that Krishna weaved in the answer to your question during the class. And yeah, that's why I felt like I needed to finish with that poem, because that devotee wrote that poem as he was leaving, I think very soon before he was leaving his body. And it was just so exemplary of the mood that we need to be in for that, so that we don't fall into, like you said, that the trap of the ego, right? But oh my goodness, we have so many hands up. And I know that Narottamam Nitai Das Prabhu had written in the chat that he had a story that he wanted to share inspiring. So would you be able to unmute Prabhu and share, please?
Yes, yes, Hare Krishna, my dandavats to everyone. And I wanted to share one story of my grandfather in India. We were on the west side by the ocean. We have a house that's like older than the US, 350 years old, still standing. And he was a practicing Brahmana over there, where he was the head pujari for the three villages in that area. When he was, and he only sustained his everything with donations from others as they wish to give it to him. and he did everyone's like birth center, everything from like all the ceremonies. But when he was about to leave his body, he knew that the time was coming. He was sitting in a lotus position, and he told my father and my father's brothers that this is the time he's gonna go. And he went into prayer. He started taking Krishna's names, O Mukunda, O Govinda, O Keshava, all these different names of Krishna. And that's how he left his body. So I at least like to think that at least he went to Vaikuntha. It was before the time of Srila Prabhupada. And so that was inspiring to me that, he dedicated his life to Krishna as best he knew at that time. And it was really amazing. So this is before I was born. And so yeah, this is yeah, that's what I wanted to share. His name is Jagannath too. My grandmother's name is Subhadra. So Hare Krishna.
That's amazing. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, Narottam Nitai, Das Prabhu. Because I find, as much as it's so inspiring to hear the stories of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's always really inspiring, at least for me, to kind of also hear about things that have happened in contemporary life, so that, I don't know, I just feel really hopeful, because it's like, okay, it's possible. And then we have so many other hands up that we usually don't hear from. So I would love to hear from Karen Carlson, please, if you would like to unmute yourself.
So I just wanted to check in, just because it's like, I don't have a story exact like that is inspiring in that same way, but it's just interesting because, normally I check in from around lunchtime from Switzerland, and I'm now in New Hampshire in my mother's 250-year-old house, cleaning out a really giant house for 2 weeks because it's the kids' school holiday from Switzerland. And, she passed away last April, or she left her body. And just like kind of the process, she was here for 40 years. It's sort of like a hoarder house. I mean, she like literally never threw anything away. And just to go through it is a painstaking process. And I'm like, it's so funny and strange and uncanny and awesome that I happen to get to tune in today. And this is the topic. And just like, I always think about this material, like just her attachment to the material world, but also not. It's not like she took care of these things or valued these things. It's sort of like she just couldn't part with them, whatever it was, and at the moment of her passing, I wasn't there, and I was also wrapped up in this material stuff. My husband couldn't get into the country. I was trying to get him to come into the country. So I was trying to FedEx papers. And then, they were going to send her home with a hospice kit that night that she passed away in the hospital. So we all had this instinct to stay with her, but it was like, you have to go prepare because it's going to be really tough. She's going to come, like, I got to come at 8 a.m. So we'd come home and we're getting all this stuff ready for her to come, and overnight she left her body. And I just sort of always have this like, wow, why was I so wrapped up in this stupid stuff, this material stuff, when I could have sort of been a part of that experience, which I somehow always assumed I would be. Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting too, like the changes. I left here in September, and there was a house sitter, but just like the energy, that's the change in energy in this old house. And like my husband was afraid, the kids coming and the wildlife and stuff. And I was like, we don't see any wildlife. They hardly ever come. And just in like the last 5 days, there's been a coyote running around the yard comfortably, a bobcat hanging out in the yard comfortably, and just about 5 minutes ago, a fox just hanging out in the yard comfortably. And so I just sort of wanted to share just like the experience that I'm having in this sort of similar topic about what you're talking about. And although it's not like, she had her own relationship to death and dying. She was not a devotee, but she had been a seeker. She was very spiritually minded. And I just don't know exactly where she was at, because she was very septic at that time. And my aunt asked her where she was right now, and she goes, in nirvana. So, in a way she was sort of there, I guess, in her own way. I like to think, now that we're having this conversation. So anyway, thank you for letting me share.
No, thank you for sharing. And I think what what I really heard from what you shared, Karen, is how important it is for us to kind of have that prep ahead of time, not just for ourselves of like what do we want to have happening when we are going to be leaving our body, but just kind of start thinking about that in case if for our loved ones as well, and not just the loved ones that are in older bodies, but just if in anyone, just kind of having that preparation in mind. And that's why here I live in Alachua, Florida, and there's a devotee here who puts together these Vaishnava care kits, and I've actually sent them to a couple of devotees.
Yeah,
And
I got one.
yeah, you have one, right? Maybe you could show it.
So-
And it's amazing. And it's these kits that come with like everything that you need to kind of help someone, either if they're in the hospital or if they're sick or if they're leaving their body. And it has like special like sacred soil and like water from the sacred rivers and like a image of Radha Krishna. And it's like, and the reason why I share it is because if we just start thinking ahead of time of that way, and that's why I put the books in the chat, like it's so important for us to start thinking of that final exam and to think of it with that love and that acceptance and possibly excitement, like, oh my gosh, yes, like this is possible, like I can do this. And then that way that'll help us so that we can be in that space to support ourselves and others when they leave their bodies. So thank you so much for sharing that, Karen.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And then we also have Venetia. Venetia, you have to unmute yourself. Please.
Oh, sorry, my audio just cut out for a second. Hare Krishna, Damodar Priya. Oh my goodness, what a class. And I know you're new to giving class. And so I just want to encourage you. Go girl, amazing. The way you prepared for this class was so beautiful. You're just, yeah, sincerity really is the word that, sometimes it's just so important when we read the Bhagavatam together. I feel that like we take the verses as a launching point into appreciating deeply everything that's being said. And as Adi Purush always tells us to celebrate Krishna, and it was just perfect the way you did it. So I wanted to say that. And I also wanted to say that my brother-in-law, who is like a year older than me, is dying of cancer. I mean, he's potentially got some years, but it's clear. And my mother-in-law is just, she's not showing it, but she's, obviously, like, what can you say? And they're a Catholic family, but I think have sort of lost connection with their faith. And I just want you to know that I've been struggling, I'm so new to devotion myself that I don't feel in a place to kind of share Krishna consciousness. I feel shy about it. I don't feel qualified, but I just want you to know you've really inspired me to I know that my mother-in-law wants to talk about God, and the advice that from one of the things that you read was just shine from your own faith, shine from your own soul, shine from your own love of Krishna, and that will lead the way into the conversation that they so want to have. So I just want you to know that not only did you hit it out of the ballpark technically, but you just inspired me so much. So Hare Krishna and bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear Sister Venetia. And honestly, that's the prayer that we always offer all of us that are giving class in the beginning is, right? That just, dear Krishna, please, and make it so that anything that I say can inspire others to serve you and Radha and Krishna and Guru. And I highly recommend, and I put the link in the chat. Like I said, I promise I'm not getting any kind of money from people buying the book, but that Giriraj Swami book is really, really helpful for you to read.
I copied the link. And,
okay, good. Yeah, because it's a really support you in that.
How wonderful is Krishna? He heard your prayer.
Yeah, how wonderful is Krishna? And because in the book, Krishna. It also talks about people helping loved ones who are of different faiths. And being able to support them in that way. So I really encourage you to check it out. And please reach out to me. I'll find a way to get you my WhatsApp information so that I can, be in touch with you. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna. Thank you. And are we about to have darshan, Adi Parusha Prabhu? Because I can stay for afterglow, because I know poor Bhima Prabhu has had his hand up this whole time. I just wanted to call on the folks that we usually don't talk about. Hear from first. You're muted. Are we having darshan?
We have a little bit of time then.
We have a little bit of time. So Bhima Prabhu, is he still here? I just feel like it would be lovely to hear from him since he was already giving us a preview of my class yesterday during Afterglow.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It's so lovely to hear you give class because you come at an angle that starts with the heart. And then you always do your due diligence and you find Krishna consciousness and that loving outreach where we wouldn't normally look, as in the poetry of that devotee, which you have to listen to because these are the final words of someone who is actually for truth standing in front of the so-called Grim Reaper that he said that we dress death. The Grim Reaper taking on that dialogue, they dress me in their fear. That is huge because, you know, our lives, whether it be death itself, which is the most extreme form of anxiety that digs down to the very ahankara of our existence, to our everyday concerns and anxieties, we dress them all with fear. And fear is the opposite of faith. And that if we have faith that we understand, however roughly, we're going to be treated. Hare Krishna. Maybe afterwards. Hare Krishna.
Is it just me or did we lose it? Because I don't see him anymore.
We left. I mean, he left somehow. Got disconnected.
Oh, Krishna is keeping us in anticipation.
How wonderful is Adipusha Prabhu?
Yeah. All right, well, maybe he'll connect again. If not, oh, can we see your deities, Ananda Bihari Prabhu, since you're not in the meantime? I think he's coming in right now, but it's going to take him a little bit to get set up. Oh, there we go. We got it. Haribo, thank you. Jai Shri Radhamurida Gaurachandra.
Jai Shri Shri Radha Muralidhar Shri Gaurachandra Ki Jai. Beautiful deities. Every time I take darshan of them, I just go, Krishna, I'm biased. I don't care. Most beautiful deities out there. Tina, I don't have up. Or Bhima,
Oh, hey,
Bhima.
Tina had our hand up?
Horrible. Yes, I did, but I saw that it was a long wait, and I was just like, it's okay. Maybe I don't supposed to speak, and
No, go for it,
that's
dear
all right
sister.
for me. Horrible, Damodar Priya. It was really good. Hard to listen to at first because I'm mourning still some of my family members, so hard class, but I'm glad I stuck to it because it was good. I just wanted to say that what I have noticed with my family members is that they're very strong people. Black people tend to be very strong. Like the men are very strong. But what I've noticed is that at least with my uncle, as cancer spread through his body, he accepted it and accepted his position with God. And in the final days, it's almost like he became childlike. You know, his strong nature changed, and I was able to serve him and read the Bible to him, and rub essential oils on his feet, and just like do things like that of service to him, because he's one of my fathers. And I just noticed that I don't know if this is what for all devotees, but yes, horrible.
No, please go ahead. Oh,
Childlike nature, this breakdown of the ego and false sense of identity is what I saw. I saw the spiritual transformation happening like in real time. It's childlike nature that comes at the end. It's like, it's coming, death is coming, because they kind of become more of their inner child and of their position of child, their child to God, like a relationship. And that's what I've noticed, and I value it, but it was hard to see for him, because I always seen him as this very strong man that, taught me virtue and morals and all of this. But it's like our roles switched at the end. Yeah. And I was able to serve him in a way, and I'm grateful for that. Yeah. Yeah.
thank you so much, Tina, for
Hare
sharing
Krishna.
that and for
Of
sticking through the class.
course.
That's why I wanted to kind of get through the difficult first part, and that just make the hopeful part longer, just because it is a really difficult topic, and it is hard, especially for those who have experienced the death of the bodies of their loved ones very recently. It's very raw, right? But thank you for taking the time to share that, because I think it's so important, testimony like yours, to show that it's not just Hare Krishna devotees. It could be people who are the people of the Bible, and that's their relationship to God, and the fact that he was able to kind of have that loving acceptance. And as we remember when we were talking about in another class of people have trouble with the word submission, and then Adipurusha Prabhu explained, well, if we think of submission as a child who lovingly submits to their parent because they trust and they know that parent loves them and will take care of them, then we have no problem with that. So it's like your uncle was in that mood, and that's so beautiful that you were able to do service during that time and be there. And he did service to you because he was inspiring you and kind of giving you a little bit of a life's lesson, and just being like, wow, this is possible for you. You can have this relationship to God so that you can be welcoming God in that loving kind of childlike mood. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sticking to it so you could share that with us.
Yeah. I think if a person, a soul, could have that deep connection in Abraham religion and Abrahamic religion, we are so fortunate to have such a strong connection to Krishna in this discipline. And I am not worried for any of us who are connected to Krishna as we chant. I'm not worried for any of us.
Oh, Haribo, thank you
Haribo,
again.
Narayani just woke up. I gotta go.
Okay.
Haribo.
Haribo, love you. Bye. Yeah, Srimad Bible Ki Jai. Thank you, Ananda Vihari Prabhu. Did Bhima Prabhu want to finish his thought before we're done? Is he still here? I can't see him.
He's in Vaikuntha.
He's in Vaikuntha.
Shoveling horse manure.
Serving humbly his horses. That's so beautiful. Okay, well, if nobody else has anything to share.
No, he's here. He's here.
Oh, he's here?
Yeah.
Okay, where is he?
Howdy, Bo. Can you hear me? Am I okay?
He's next to Gautam Ghosh on my screen.
I see him now. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that what a lovely class, what a lovely poem. Like I said, we pay close attention to everybody's words when they are actually facing what we all must face. We kind of die, at least myself, and I know some of our more rebellious souls amongst us, we die 1,000 deaths. Radhanath Swami used to say, and Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj actually brought this out from an ancient writing. I can't remember who said it first, but it was for true spiritual life. To die before you die, to actually die before you die. And that is, of course, that you just give over all our so-called illusion of control, even over our very life force within our body. We submit, we surrender, we let go. And in that letting go, Krishna can grab us and take our lives over. I mean, just look at Prabhupada coming over on the Jaladuta. You know, I've had, anyways, when you have a heart condition like that and you go through that, you know, that is literally you are facing death. When your heart gives you that kind of pain, you face death. Prabhupada, Prabhupada, when he came over here, he did miracles. It was a complete miracle what Prabhupada did. And that's because Krishna took over and did everything. And that's that dying before you die, because once you let go of everything, Krishna takes over. And I think that's very important, that we don't dress death of any type, whether it be our false ego or getting smashed or corrected, which is how I relate to it. That we shouldn't view it as being fearful, but that we should view it as the necessary hurdles. And I'd also like to say at this point, because we've addressed this, to give much thanks and honor and respect to those amongst us who are either formerly chaplains or in our times in need, when our relatives are passing or people dear to us are passing, that we have to buck it up and we have to try to hunker down and try to share that faith that we have inculcated in Krishna being there, that they have nothing to fear. Recently, I've been talking to my father, who's 90-something years old, and he's in and out of the hospital. And I don't know if he's an atheist. He's not an atheist. He's agnostic. He thinks it's a mystery. But I say, in this mystery, Dad, you have nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear, and, that's all he wants to hear. It's all he wants to hear. And if we can somehow, via our faith, in as much as the faith we have, we're able to help people approach their ending years without fear, which is, of course, the saddest thing, to see somebody go into that good night raging, that you go into it peaceful and like a child into its parents' arms. So once again, I don't know whether I got through before, but thank you very much, Prabhujini, for bringing up such a wonderful subject matter and covering it so gently and poetically as you have. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bhima Prabhu, our resident poet. And thank you so much for bringing up Srila Prabhupada, because that was actually an example that I wanted to bring up, but I realized that a lot of us already know of the pastime of Srila Prabhupada and his last moments when he was leaving his body, how he just continued to do service and continue to engage everyone in service to Radha and Krishna and to Guru, and to really just kind of keep everyone thinking about being in devotional service and trying to prepare all his disciples and everyone around him for the idea that he was going to leave his body and that they will leave their bodies, and just providing such a stalwart example of how that can be done. So I didn't bring it up because I feel like sometimes, at least for me, I don't know about anybody else, Srila Prabhupada feels like such a high ideal that sometimes it's helpful to hear about devotees who, they're still, kind of above us in an ideal, but they seem a little bit more reachable and attainable in terms of, kind of making us feel hopeful that we can have that relationship to God and to that final exam, that we could be joyful and not think of that exam not as an exam that we dread, but as like like we're excited to go to it, because when we go through that exam or that final kind of like a hurdle, as Bhima Prabhu was saying, then we get to meet our dear most loving friend, Krishna, who loves us so much that he'll meet us wherever we are, and he's ready to just embrace us. Yeah, he's there and he loves us so much and he loves every single living being and he's willing to travel with us in our hearts from body to body and just is ready to help us however we can. So thank you so much. Nanda Bihar, we're good, or is anybody else?
Thank you, Damodar Priya. I'll have to rewatch this class. It's so rich and thick in philosophy, realization, and depth. I was thinking, our time in this body is limited. So therefore, if there is a person that you want to serve, if there is a service that you've always wanted to do for Srila Prabhupada, if there's a person who you need to apologize to, if there's a person you need to say, I love you to, do it. Do it now while you're in this body. Thank you, Damodar Priya, for this class. Adipusha Prabhu, you want to be the finisher? Just a few lines. Besides, how wonderful is Krishna? That has been said already. Narayani is up. Hold on, let me ask Adipusha Prabhu to unmute himself. Where is it? There.
I've asked him, but I don't think he's. He looks frozen to me.
Yeah, he did something to his phone. Okay. All right. Okay, have a wonderful day, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, there he is, Adipusha Prabhu.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah. I remember Hayagriva left his body. First of all, we want to thank Mataji for this amazing class, just her heart overflowing with wisdom and enthusiasm. Very, very sweet. But Hayagriva, you know who Hayagriva is? Is the first devotee who met Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Hayagriva, he wrote the Hare Krishna Explosion and Vrindavan Days. Anyway, when he left his body, he had cancer, and they were bringing him to the hospital. And he was sitting in the passenger seat, and he just said, Hare Krishna, and he left. And he was sitting cross-legged on the passenger seat. So it was the weekend of the Labor Day festival. So he had thousands of guests at Vrindavan. And they drove him back to the farm. And we were like, oh my God, we can't stop the festival and we can't have a program, a funeral. So they just sat him in a chair in the temple room because he was already sitting up. And he had this smile on his face. So for 3 days, when the whole festival was going on, he was sitting there. They put a garland on him, and people thought it was a murti, but it was Hayagriva's body. But he had this cute smile on his face because he just said, Hare Krishna. And he left with a smile. So dozens of times I looked at that smile and I thought, wow, it's so cool. He left with a smile like that, But, so that's possible. Not everybody's share was so amazing, especially the point Jeffrey Eckler made and Bhima emphasized and Matsuchi talked about it. Die before you die. That we don't, although death is the final test, and we want to prepare for that, and we can even look forward to it, and we don't have to be afraid of it. But we can die right now. We can give up our other desires, other activities, and the second birth that the spiritual master gives us means that we have a new life now. Every moment we can die, and but reborn. And be reborn in a devotional service and love for Krishna. How wonderful is Krishna that he's calling us like that. Okay, we'll let you go. I'm talking too much.
Thank you.
Glory to Prabhupada.
Everybody's processing the story that you told about Hayagriva Maharaj. Yeah.
But I love that. I love that it can be as simple as just saying Hare Krishna and then just leaving your body, right? Like that's beautiful.
With a smile. With a smile. And we got to see that smile for long. So eventually they had a nice funeral and they built a samadhi. It's over by the lake there near the RVC building. And they buried him sitting up in salt, the body in salt like a sannyasi. Because he actually did take sannyas at the final stage there. He's our older god brother. Okay, Hare Krishna goes to Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Before we get any more esoteric than that, let's wrap it up on this high note. Bhima Prabhu, I want you to dance on my grave. I want you to grow salad on my grave and give it to the devotees. Offer it to Krishna. Give it to the devotees. Okay? Will you grant that desire? Okay, Damodar.
This class has taken a very strange turn. I think we should end it now before we go into a ditch.
Yeah, I think so too. Damodar Priya, thank you very much. Bowing
You're
down.
welcome.
Well, wonderful class. Thanks for allowing everyone to participate and have fun discussing this subject of changing bodies with Krishna holding us by the hand.
I don't think we've gone to a ditch, by the way. I think that it's important when we're speaking of the death of the body, which can be really difficult for a lot of people to process, for there to be joy, and for there to be like an opportunity for us to kind of feel that joyfulness, because I know, like, for example, I believe it's in the Irish tradition that, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, that wakes are supposed to be like a joyful celebration of the life of the person, and they're supposed to be dancing and singing, and it's supposed to be joyful. And for us as devotees, I think it's even more appropriate that we're kind of going into this in a joyful mood. We're still respectful but joyful, because, like, as we said, this person has left their body, and if they've been preparing their whole life to serve Krishna and to meet Krishna, then how can we not be joyful if we know that that's where they're going? Like, they are getting to go and serve Krishna and have pastimes with Krishna. So how can we not be joyful? That doesn't take away from the grief that we may experience, because obviously, like, grief is the other side of love. So as much as we love that person, then we're going to grieve them. But I don't think that there's anything wrong in being joyful and lighthearted when it needs to be, as long as we're still being respectful of, where it's coming from. So just want to affirm that for you, because I know you're always like, will Krishna forgive me?
Yeah. After we do anything in Krishna's service, we always ask for forgiveness for our imperfections. So thank you, Damodar Priya. Wonderful class. Thank you. Such a show. This is a show. It wasn't a class. This was a show, a circus. Very deeply philosophical and devotional circus. Thank you. All the circus actors, especially Paul. Paul, you want to say something before you hit the target? Paul is a Cupid. Okay. All right. Damodar Priya, tell
Paul can only see the eye of the bird right now.
That's right. That's right. The true warrior.
I mean, if he wasn't shy, I would ask for him to share about how his father left his body and how inspiring that was. But I don't know if he'll feel comfortable sharing that. So maybe we'll get him to share at some other time. So
okay, I marked that down. Well, we're gonna call on you next time. Okay, Hare Krishna. Love you all. Hari Bol. Have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna.